Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to tackle something pretty fundamental about American healthcare.
We really are.
We're not just talking about high deductibles. We're looking at a thesis that says the U.S. system isn't a competitive market at all.
Right. The argument we're digging into today is that it's something much closer to a controlled, systemic monopoly.
Or even a cartel. It's a provocative idea.
It is. And the source material argues this isn't an accident, not just a result of scientific progress. It was intentionally built this way.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack that claim. We're going to trace the history, identify the players, and look at the actual day-to-day mechanisms that supposedly restrict competition.
To start, we should probably define what's meant by monopoly here, because it isn't one single company.
No, it's not the textbook definition.
Not at all. It's what the sources call a networked monopoly. Think of it like a series of interlocking gates or choke points.
Okay, so a system of controls.
Exactly. And these controls limit the choices for both doctors and patients, making sure only certain types of medicine can really succeed.
So let's lay out those controls. The critique breaks it down into four main areas. The first one is the control of entry.
Right. Basically controlling who gets to become a doctor. Through things like strict accreditation standards, capping the number of seats in medical schools, and limiting residency spots. If you control the supply of doctors, you control the system.
Okay, so that's one. What's the second?
The second is control of practice. This is all about what treatments a doctor is actually allowed to use.
And that's enforced by state licensing boards and the insurance companies?
Precisely. They set a very rigid standard of care. If you step outside of that, you're taking a huge risk.
Then there's the third one, control of information. This one feels big. What knowledge is even considered, valid?
Yeah, this is key. The argument is that what we call evidence-based is dominated by research that's overwhelmingly funded by vested interests.
So drug companies.
Mostly. Meanwhile, other approaches, nutritional, lifestyle, are often just dismissed.
And the fourth and final control, the one that makes it all run?
Control of reimbursement.
What gets paid for?
That's the engine. Insurance, Medicare, they primarily pay for approved, patented, and often very expensive interventions. Anything else faces a huge financial barrier. If the system won't pay for it, it might as well not exist.
That paints a picture of, wow, really tight management. But it wasn't always this way, was it? How did it get so consolidated?
To really get it, you have to go back to the early 20th century. The sources argue that the whole blueprint for this was laid down around 1910.
And it all centers on one single event.
One critical report, the Flexner Report.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting. The Flexner Report. It sounds like some dusty old paper, but its impact was just massive.
It was seismic. And you have to look at where it came from. The funding is key. It was financed by powerful groups, specifically the Carnegie Foundation.
And it had the full backing of the American Medical Association, the AMA, which was gaining a lot of power at the time.
Exactly. The stated goal was, a noble one.
Yeah.
Promote high-quality scientific medicine.
But the effect was a massive consolidation of power. Tell us about what happened to the medical schools.
The effect was swift and pretty brutal. The report basically set these new rigorous standards. You needed big labs, affiliations with hospitals.
Things that cost a lot of money.
A lot of money. The result was that nearly half of the 155 medical schools in the U.S. closed within about a decade.
And the sources are clear. This wasn't just trimming the fat. The schools that closed were often the ones teaching different approaches.
That's the core of the argument. They were the schools teaching homeopathy, eclectic medicine, things that focused on herbal remedies or alternative modalities.
So it purged the competition.
It completely purged the competition. It consolidated medical education under one single model, drug and surgery-based. And that model, of course, aligned perfectly with the business interests of the growing pharmaceutical industry and the big hospital systems.
So that's the foundation. Fast forward to today. What are the modern pillars holding that structure up?
We can break them down into four key players, or pillars. First, the most obvious one, Big Pharma.
The engine of profit, as the critique calls them.
That's right. Their entire model is based on patents, which gives them a 20-year monopoly on a drug. That's what allows for the really high pricing.
And their influence is much bigger than just selling drugs.
Oh, much bigger. They fund a huge amount of the research, they help shape medical school curricula, and they spend billions marketing directly to doctors.
Shaping what gets prescribed. Okay, so pharma is the engine, pillar number 2.
That would be the AMA and the state licensing boards. If pharma's the engine, these guys are the legal enforcers.
These are the ones who can take your license away.
That's the hammer. A doctor who deviates too far from the approved protocols, maybe by using a nutritional therapy or an off-label drug,
Hmm.
they risk being investigated for unprofessional conduct.
Which is a powerful way to enforce conformity.
It really is. It forces obedience.
So that brings us to the third pillar, the hospital systems and the insurers. The critique calls them the financial infrastructure.
Correct. They're the plumbing. They design the payment models, and those models heavily favor expensive procedures, hospital stays, and brand-name drugs.
Not prevention.
Definitely not prevention. There's just more money in high-tech intervention than there is in, say, counseling someone on their diet.
And the final piece of the puzzle, government regulators, like the FDA. They're supposed to be about safety.
And they are. But the critique defines them as the gatekeepers. The argument isn't that regulation is bad, but that the drug approval process is so incredibly expensive.
It's a barrier to entry.
A massive one. It can cost hundreds of millions, even billions, to get a drug through the process. Only the biggest corporations can play that game.
So it naturally weeds out any competition from smaller players or from things that can't be patented.
Exactly. If you have a natural substance, say a vitamin or an herb, that's really effective, who's going to spend $1 billion to prove it?
Because you can't get a patent. You can't get a monopoly profit at the end.
Right. So those potential therapies are just starved of research, leaving the field wide open for patented high-profit drugs.
Okay, so this brings us to how this all works on the ground, the day-to-day mechanisms. Let's start with that standard of care you mentioned.
Yeah, the standard of care is not a suggestion. It's a legal concept. It means doctors are expected to follow the officially sanctioned protocols.
And if they don't,
If they deviate, even with the best intentions for their patient, they open themselves up to a malpractice lawsuit.
which raises the question of who sets that standard.
Well, the standard is heavily influenced by the clinical trials.
Yeah.
And as we just said, most of those trials are funded by the companies that stand to profit from the outcome.
So it's a feedback loop?
It's a perfect financial feedback loop. The company that makes the product helps fund the research that establishes the guidelines for using that product.
And then there's the economic bedrock of it all, patents.
Patents are the lifeblood.
Yeah.
That 20-year monopoly is everything.
Oh.
But the real insight from the critique is that the system doesn't just monetize cures, it monetizes delay,
What do you mean by that?
a chronic condition, one that needs to be managed for decades with a daily pill that is infinitely more profitable than a one-time cure or an effective prevention strategy.
A lifelong customer.
A lifelong customer. Cures are bad for that business model.
Wow. And this even extends to the data itself, to the medical journals?
The sources say it's highly compromised. Think about it.
Mm.
If a company funds a study and the results are negative, what's the incentive to publish it?
There is none. You bury it.
It happens all the time. Negative results are often delayed or just never see the light of day. This skews the entire body of medical knowledge that doctors rely on
And the journals themselves rely on advertising from these same companies.
heavily. So you have this echo chamber where the industry funds the research, publishes the favorable results in journals it advertises in, and then helps set the standard of care based on that biased data.
It's a very tidy system, and it all comes down to that reimbursement model for the doctor.
At the end of the day, yes, the model pays for volume. Procedures, tests, prescriptions. A doctor gets reimbursed easily for writing a prescription in 10 minutes.
But not for spending an hour on nutritional counseling?
Often, no.
Mm.
So the incentives are all pushing towards a drug-focused interventionist approach. It's not the doctor's fault. It's the system they're in.
So if this is the structure, what does it all mean for the patient? What's the human cost?
For patients, the critique argues the results are, well, catastrophic, you have skyrocketing costs, and at the same time, we're one of the most over-medicated populations in the world.
The book also brings up the concept of iatrogenic disease.
Yes, that's illness caused by medical treatment. It's an alarming idea that the treatments themselves are sometimes a major source of harm and cost.
Which supports that bigger claim we talked about, that the system is designed to manage chronic disease, not cure it.
Exactly. If you're managing diabetes, hypertension, autoimmune issues with lifelong drugs, you have a permanent revenue stream.
Yeah.
If you actually reverse those conditions through lifestyle changes, well, you lose a customer.
So patients lose therapeutic choice. And what about the doctors? I mean, they get into medicine to help people.
And they get burned out.
Mm.
They face this incredible loss of professional autonomy. They're pushed into what the sources call cookbook medicine,
Just following the recipe.
just following the protocol, even if their own clinical judgment tells them a different path might be better for a specific patient. That, plus the pressure for high patient volume, is a recipe for burnout.
The book uses some specific examples to make this concrete. One is the historic marginalization of competitors.
Right, groups like chiropractors, naturopaths, even midwives. Their methods often don't fit the profitable drug and surgery model.
So they've faced legal challenges and pushback from the AMA for decades.
Intense, systematic resistance. It's about protecting the monopoly on methodology.
And our more modern example is the fight over vitamins and supplements.
Yes, the so-called war on supplements. This is crucial. If you can get a powerful nutritional supplement, like high-dose vitamin D, regulated as a drug, you bring it under the monopoly's control.
You force it through that billion-dollar FDA approval process.
And you push all the smaller companies out of the market. It keeps cheap, effective, non-patentable alternatives from ever becoming mainstream competition.
Okay, so if that's the diagnosis of the problem, what's the prescription? What solutions do the sources propose to break this control?
The solutions aim to dismantle those four pillars of control. The first big one is legal and regulatory reform.
Which means what exactly?
It means loosening those strict licensing laws to allow for more types of healing arts, what the critique calls freedom of medicine.
So more competition.
More competition. It also means reforming patent law so you can't have these indefinite monopolies on essential medicines.
The second solution is about information. It's transparency.
Total transparency. Mandate that all clinical trial data gets published. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
No more burying negative results.
Exactly. And also, full public disclosure of all the financial ties between industry and researchers, doctors, everyone. Let's see where the money is flowing.
And the final area of reform is about empowering patients and practitioners.
Right. Supporting models that get outside of the broken insurance system. Things like direct primary care, where patients just pay a monthly fee directly to their doctor.
Bypassing the whole reimbursement game.
Completely. And also expanding things like health savings accounts and protecting the right of patients to try alternative therapies without being penalized.
Now, we have to be fair here. This entire critique framing the system as a cartel it's very controversial.
Oh, absolutely. And critics would make some very valid points.
They'd say this view oversimplifies things, that the FDA process for all its costs is there for patient safety.
And they'd be right. It prevents dangerous things from getting to market. They'd also argue that this critique downplays the genuine triumphs of modern medicine. Amazing surgeries, life-saving drugs. The progress is real.
Of course. But the value of looking at this deep dive, I think, is that it forces you to confront the economic structure. It's a powerful argument that challenges the assumption that our system is just a failing market.
Instead of a market that's perhaps working exactly as it was designed to for powerful financial interests.
The ultimate message from the sources is that this is an economic and political problem, not a scientific one. It's a call for medical freedom.
It totally reframes the debate. It's not just about lowering costs. It's about dismantling centralized control to reintroduce real competition and choice.
Which leaves us with a final, pretty provocative thought for you, the listener. If the current system is defined by maximizing profit, what should a successful healthcare system be defined by?
Exactly. What is the metric we should be aiming for? Is it just lifespan? Is it quality of life? Is it maybe the number of people who are not on chronic medication? Something for you to mull over as you think about who your healthcare system really serves.